Genevieve, it's really good to see you here today at the FIEC Leaders Conference. You've come across from Eden Baptist Church in Cambridge, where you're the Pastoral Worker, and before that you spent 14 years as a missionary in Japan.
Yes.
So could you tell me, how is ministry in Cambridge against a town and gown backdrop?
Okay, with great pleasure, because it's a real joy and privilege to be serving at Eden. Now, I hadn't personally come across the term town and gown until I came to Cambridge, not having gone to university there. And I'm aware that it carries with it a slightly negative nuance. I would say I trust in a good way, in God's grace. Eden self-consciously is a student church. But I don't believe, again with God's help, that we make the mistake of thinking that wisdom and understanding are necessarily tied to an academic background. And what that means in practice is that there are many people across the board who are wise, who understand, who know their Bibles, and it's a great privilege again to stand alongside them, whether they're students or not. I think I'd say secondly, that the human heart is the same wherever you go, and the needs of the human heart are the same wherever you go. Now, you do need to understand someone's situation, and there may be complexities involved, so it's not being simplistic about that, and yet the needs of the heart remain the same, and some of the principles involved remain the same in terms of coming alongside, walking alongside, engaging with the word and praying. And that's true whether someone's a student or not a student. I think thirdly, I'd say, and I'm so grateful for this, for the wisdom also of the pastor and the leaders, that Eden isn't simply a preaching point, it's a family church. So we actively welcome students into our midst, and thankfully we see them integrated. Part of the ways that we do that, for example, entail offering a one-to-one scheme, and that means a student, by his or her request, being linked up with an older person who we might call a senior partner, and together it's friendship with an open agenda, engaging with the word, a measure of accountability, and being prayerful within that. We couldn't offer that scheme unless the body of the church were willing to be those senior partners, and again stand alongside the students. We also offer a home-from-home scheme, which is, as it sounds, whereby a family or a couple adopt a student, again at his or her request, and they come to that person's or that family's home, not as a guest, but actually as another family member, so to speak. And again, we couldn't offer that unless the body of the church was behind it. I think there are categories of people, for example, students, fellows, non-students, and so on, and they might be helpful in terms of getting a preliminary handle on where someone's at. But within that, they are people, and again, we try to treat each person as the individual that they are. And the students, some of them are just fearsomely bright, amazingly bright, and so gifted. But that gifting is something to celebrate and not to be divisive. For my own part, there are mainly 5 areas of work in which I serve, often under the auspices or leadership of a colleague or someone else. And those are with the students, in pastoral care of women across the board, a little bit in evangelism with the International Women's Group, many of whom are Japanese, which again is a special joy to my heart. And one afternoon a week is spent with the elderly or the unwell. It is a great privilege to serve in this way, and I thank God both for the opportunity and for the enabling.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you.